Welcome everyone to the Stories of a C?O. I'm Natasha Makijani and the CEO of Oliver Sonson, and today we've got a really special guest, Neil Berry, who actually went from HR to CEO, breaking the mold. So what I'd like to do is actually start you off with introducing you to Neil from a working class background in Newport, South Wales, to CEO of HTG-UK. Neil Berry's story is one of grit, aspiration, and proving that unconventional paths can lead to the top. So Neil, over to you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Natasha. Thank you for the invite. Thank you for being here. So I'm Neil Berry. I am CEO of Health Transportation Group UK. We are an organisation that provides non-emergency patient transport services to the NHS. Currently run on around 400 vehicles and about 850 staff. And yes, a bit of an unusual path to get here, starting in HR.
So Neil, just to give us a bit more of an overview of your career, so just give us sort of a 60-second intro about yourself, a little bit more in detail.
No problem. So my career started in law. So I actually qualified as a solicitor. I started in employment law after doing a law degree in legal practice course. I found quite quickly that what I really enjoyed was the practical application. So although I've got a degree, I've got good exam results and so on, I never really liked the academic side of things. I really enjoyed being practical and hands-on. And I had an opportunity to move into HR and I took it. So from that point then, my career just continued in HR. So that was probably for the next 13 years, I would say. I spent pretty much in HR along that time. But my journey started after that in Welsh Water. So I was there for a couple of years. Then I moved to a very small organisation before I joined Arriva. So at the time I joined Arriva in Patient Transport Services as a HR manager. And I was really fortunate that I had 5 different jobs over the next 7 years in Arriva. Promotions throughout, but just different opportunities. And that led me to where I am now with Health Transportation Group. And soon after taking on the HR director's role for the UK, I was asked whether or not I fancied having a try at operations. Never done a day of operations in my life, and thought, why not? So I did, and 5 and a bit years later, I'm now CEO.
That's amazing and a really, really interesting story. So just to elaborate, what was it like growing up in Newport, South Wales from a working class background and actually establishing yourself to where you are today? Give us a bit more of a feel for what that feels like.
I had a really good upbringing. My parents worked really, really hard. They are still in the same house that I was pretty much born in 40-something years ago. I won't give too much away. But yeah, I suppose if I look back, almost a bit of a sheltered upbringing in many ways. We always had everything that we ever wanted as kids, but my parents had to work exceptionally hard for that. With my dad in particular working very, very long hours and weekends and late nights and early mornings and so on, just to get us what we had as kids. And his philosophy was always, so my dad was a builder, my mum was a carer for the NHS, and my dad always used to say he used to work all the hours that he could so that myself and my brother didn't have to. And I think from that, it was probably quite unusual in many ways, although all my friends and family were all very working class. I think that kind of stuck out a little bit that, we had such an upbringing around work is so important and it's so vital, and hard work and grit is what you really need. And so I suppose from my upbringing and where I was brought up, it was quite, how can I describe it? It wasn't full of aspiration, shall we say. People from my school, it was a good school, but people from my school, they don't become CEOs, they don't become directors of large organizations. It's very, very rare. So that's what I kind of mean with a sheltered background in many ways, is that aspiration, desire, you could have it, but maybe chances and opportunity weren't on your doorstep. It wasn't something that was visible to us all. So But yeah, like I say, a good, really good upbringing. Parents very much looked after us, really pushed us to become what we could be, and with very little pressure, to be honest. So, whilst we had opportunity to progress, there was never a desire or never a mandate that this is what you must do. So you must go to university, you must study hard, you must do this, and you must be a professional. It was be happy was probably the sentiment.
So that's really interesting because obviously a lot of people become a product of their own environment. And obviously, you went to a school where people didn't aspire to become a CEO or C suite on the board, but your parents gave you that value system to go to that next level. What would you say? At what point did you realize that you wanted to aspire for more, even though your environment perhaps didn't warrant it? What was it from within you that you wanted to aspire for more and take that next step?
I think I probably always had the desire. I and I couldn't necessarily. I was thinking about this, and I couldn't really pinpoint any particular time or any big turning point in my life or career that got me to that point. But I think probably TV to some respects. You see lawyers on TV, and you see the great suits, the great lifestyle, and you think, oh, I'd like that. That seems really different. But it was always a aspiration to do more, but I probably didn't know what that was. And I think that's how I ended up in law, was because at the time, I don't think I had good career talks. I don't think I really knew what was out there in the big wide world. And I probably saw law and becoming a solicitor as the pinnacle. And that
Yeah.
probably on TV, and saw it as this is what I want to do because what's better? How can you be better? And to be fair, other than a doctor, and I'm very squeamish, so I'd have no chance of surviving in
Yeah.
a doctor's world. But I probably saw that as what I needed to aspire to. But yeah, I think it was not out of design, but probably out of probably naivety in some ways, but knowing deep down I wanted to do more and I had capability to do it. I obviously did very well at school. I had always had good marks and grades and so on. But yeah, lack of structure is probably quite a theme throughout my entire career, and probably was from my upbringing too, in that sense.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really exciting. By any chance, was it LA law that kind of encouraged you to become a lawyer? Just that's off where we're going, but was it LA law by any
No,
chance?
no, it wasn't. Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know what it could be at the time. Probably anything from the bill or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Where you see the lawyer come in and be really difficult and challenging. Quite enjoyed that part.
Yeah. Well, that's really exciting and an interesting take on things. So kind of let's taking it to the next step and talking about, your career path from HR to CEO, that rare journey that not many people make and you have, which is really exciting. So you started in HR, which is really unusual, and then you springboarded to CEO. How did you make that leap?
Quite naturally, if I'm honest. But through lots of hard work. The key point for me, I think, as I've reflected on my career quite a lot over the last 6 months, is that I've just had a go at anything that's been presented to me without fear. And I know that can be quite unusual, but I think that's really what it was. I think for me, as a HR professional, I probably took a very commercial, operational, legal standpoint in terms of HR. So that helped because the mindset was very much in line with the transition. But yeah, I just did it naturally. It was no more complicated than proving myself to be very effective, thankfully, and then being asked if I'd like an opportunity. So if I think back to when I was in Ariba, my final 12 months of Ariba were in procurement. So I was category manager for the HR spend for the European group. I never worked in procurement in my life, but it was an opportunity, and I thought, why not? It taught me lots of commercial and financial lessons. I learned from it. It wasn't for me. I learned it wasn't for me, and I learned that I wanted to do something else. But I spent 12 months learning that. I don't see what's wrong with taking those choices and decisions and taking a bit of a leap. So transitioning from HR to CEO would probably just quite natural in many ways, because of just, if it was in front of me, I'd have a go at it, and I'd use my team and I'd use people around me to support me, and we'd get things done.
That sounds awesome. And did you ever face any skepticism that, how can you go from being a HR professional to a CEO? Did anyone ever put any self-doubt in your mind and, that sort of thing?
I'm really honest, probably myself. So
Okay.
I because it's been from one organization, so I joined as HR director, and I've progressed over the last 5 years, taking over the CEO role on the 1st of August this year. Um, it kind of was quite natural in that I've just been a senior leader in this business and people have seen me throughout. But for me, I probably had quite a lot of self-doubt along the way, but I just didn't give it away to other people. So a little bit of imposter syndrome at times, thinking, oh, how can I do that? And I think part of that is my upbringing and where I'm from. You see lots of people who are very sophisticated, lots of people who have been in private education and things like that. So I've worked with those people throughout my career, and sometimes you look and think they've got something I haven't, but then I've got something they haven't, and that's what I've come to realize over time. So I probably gave myself some doubts, but thankfully no one else, at least no one told me to my face anyway, which is helpful.
Well, that's awesome. And who would you say, looking back, were the pivotal mentors who opened those doors for you?
There's actually quite a lot of people for me. I've worked with some really inspirational people. Um, if I think back to probably my Ariva days, where I started in 2013, the fact that I did 5 different jobs in 7 years, because people knew that they could give me an opportunity and I would grasp it and I would take it and I could probably do a good job at it. So lots of people gave me opportunities there. Since I've been in this organization, our group CEO, we've had 2 group CEOs, and both of them have invested time in me. They've both given me opportunity. And our previous CEO for the UK, he made me his successor. He pushed me. He put me forward to the group as the obvious successor to the role, and I can't thank him enough for that.
That's awesome. That's really great. And, moving on, sort of what's your vision as a CEO for the HTG UK? Tell us a little bit more about what is the future vision.
Yeah, so we want to be a successful and sustainable business. That's number one, which it has its own challenges, especially in the market we're in. It's not easy within being a private provider to the NHS. It has its own complications with low margins, which are not always favourable to your balance sheet and your P&L. But we want to be successful, we want to be sustainable, and we want to grow. How we're going to do that is by, I think, replicating my story in many ways. I want to invest in people. I want to give people opportunity. I want people to feel safe and secure to just have a go at things and try something new and try and develop. And I think if we do that, not only will we become a really successful business that people want to work for, where our retention rates are good, will be a very good, profitable business as well. But ultimately, what we'll then do is we'll provide a very good service to our patients and our customers every day, which is what underpins our business. If we can't provide that exceptional service, we won't be in business very long. So I think for me, it's investing in people is how we're going to do it.
That's really nice to hear that, especially in today's day and age, where actually the economy's suffering, people are suffering, you're still prepared to invest in your people. And as they say, if you invest in your people, the business only grows, productivity grows, and have a happy workplace, you get a better result and a better environment. And having a CEO like you obviously means that if people have given you opportunities, you're going to give your people opportunities, which is absolutely blinding. So, what would you say? You hope your story says to other people from working class or unconventional backgrounds?
I think to say it's possible, that's probably the first thing. I think you can approach leadership and senior roles in different ways. You can be someone that is very academic, you can be very theoretical, And you can also be someone like me who can just work hard, have a go at anything that's put in front of them, try and fix the problem, try and work through things and get results. And if you're brave and if you're confident and you're willing, you can do it. And, I think taking yourself out of the comfort zone is really, really important. So, Wales is quite a parochial place. So it's, once you're there, we like Welsh people. That's just who we are. And, if you ever watch rugby or anything, you can just see the passion of Welsh people. But it's quite hard to leave Wales for a lot of people. And what I would say is go where the opportunities are, because that's what I've done. And that's really important.
Yeah, I think if people move and are prepared to open their hearts and their minds, they can achieve anything, right? And it can be geography, it can be challenge, it can be go where the opportunity is, moving countries, moving abroad. So really, really interesting. So what would you say that people have self-doubt? You talked about self-doubt earlier. And a lot of people don't see themselves as CEOs. Perhaps they're on the C-suite now, or perhaps they're ahead of, they're a rising star moving to C-suite, or they're already on the C-suite, but they can't see themselves going to that next step of CEO. What would be your advice that you would give them?
I think to be yourself is the first thing. I think if you're yourself and you're true to yourself, it may take time. People progress at different rates. Some people don't get to the last place that they want to be. So, everyone's journey is slightly different, but just be true to yourself. That to me is really, really important. I feel like every day I go into work, I am just who I am, and that's really important. So, I like to think I'm quite friendly. I'll talk to people. I'm approachable, but equally, I'm the leader of the business, and I am the one that will make decisions and tough decisions and so on. And people know to come to me for what they need, and that's really key. And I think if you have honesty and integrity throughout yourself, and people will see it. But ultimately, have a go. Just throw yourself into things. If you're worried about not necessarily progressing to that step, but there's any opportunity that arises, just try it. Why not? Just have a go, and you get respect from it. People will see that. You might not see it immediately, but people will see over time that that's somebody who is passionate, somebody who wants to progress, someone who has shown all the attributes of loyalty. It's really important.
Yeah, 100%. And that's really great advice that you can give to anybody out there. So, a couple of further questions to kind of just go into. So, if you could speak to your younger self starting out, what would you say? And what advice would you give your younger self?
I'd probably study a little bit harder, if I'm honest. I think I have been quite fortunate academically that I didn't have to work too hard to pass most things that were put in front of me. However, it's probably one of the few regrets I have in life is that I probably could have worked a little bit harder and got, higher grades, but in the end, it hasn't held me back. Um, for me, I think I probably wouldn't change much at all. There's a few things that I've probably learned along the way that I could have done better. Certainly in my kind of early leadership days, I felt a little bit inadequate in rooms, and I'm a natural introvert, surprisingly. I like to talk, but apart from that, I actually really love my own space. I really love my own mind and just sitting and not communicating quite often. And so I found myself in my early leadership days of being a bit of a passenger, someone who sat in the background and gave very little away. And I learned quite quickly that that was the wrong thing to do. And actually, if I want to progress and if I want to do more, I have to give a little bit of myself away. And I have to not necessarily be the loudest person in the room. Don't think that's what the objective should be. We have to be a voice. And and I probably would have done that sooner. And I think part of that imposter syndrome, part of that feeling of inadequacy that I'm amongst people that have, like say, they've had opportunities at earlier stages in careers that maybe I didn't have, or they come from completely different backgrounds, and I feel a little bit inadequate when I'm there. But deep down, once I got through that, I realized that most of these people didn't know more than I did or weren't any more capable than I was. And if I'd just been that little bit more of myself at the time, that would have shone through. And it took me some time to get right with that.
That's really interesting. What I'd like to ask you is you actually say you're a natural introvert, obviously, is quite rare for a CEO. Any advice that you give to other people who perhaps are natural introverts but want to get to board? Because that's quite a rare quality to have in a CEO.
Yeah, I think I would probably describe myself as an extroverted introvert in that I have the capability to be, and not a big extrovert, but I have the capability to be an extrovert. So doing, podcasts, standing on a stage in front of a few hundred people, it doesn't phase me. What it does though is it drains me, and I think learning how to manage that is really, really key. So I'm not somebody, and I know from our previous conversations, you are somebody that gets lots of energy from people and being around people and doing, things in large groups. You get energy from that. I don't. I get energy from being alone and spending time by myself, or with my wife in case she hears this. But I think understanding who you are is really key to that. Introverts have a lot to offer to groups. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room, but you need to be someone who adds value, and that's what's really key. If you can add value, just be brave. Just put yourself in those positions. Yes, you might be quite exhausted after. You might feel drained. You might feel uncomfortable, but you'll get over it and then realize who you are and what it takes you to regain that energy. And that's really, really important because I think having different viewpoints is so key. Having a board, having a senior management team with different opinions, different ways of working, different outlooks on life. That's what sparks creativity. That's what sparks improvement. And introverts like myself have a lot to offer.
That's awesome. And just going to a couple of quick fireside questions. So, a leadership lesson you learned the hard way.
That you should always be prepared. And I have certainly in my early leadership days, almost I probably thought I've made it and I don't need to prepare like I had previously. I learned very much the hard way that that's not the way to do things. So be prepared, take the time, put in effort, and you'll be
Your guilty pleasure when you're off duty.
fine. So I play bowls. You can laugh. I've said it earlier. I'm only in my 40s, but I played since I was 13. A lot more competitively when I was younger, but yes, played for Wales when I was young, and yeah, still do. My guilty pleasure. Don't tell many people. It's out there to the world.
Well, now the public will know. And then sort of closing remarks before we sort of close off everything. Neil, is there any takes, if listeners are listening at the moment, are there any takeaways from a working class roots background to HR to CEO? What should it be that you want people to take from this today?
I think for me, it's important that people adjust themselves. Hard work is not a question. You have to be willing and able to put in the hard work. That is the fundamental root. But being yourself, putting yourself out of your comfort zone, putting yourself into unfamiliar circumstances, whether that be geographically or in a room with people that you don't know, or looking at, as being a HR director and taking over operations for the first time and being faced with data and KPI performances that need improvement, I'm thinking, don't really know what I'm going to do about this, but I'm going to try. And I think if you're just that person that is just willing to try and make an effort, I'm not disregarding people that have a more theoretical approach to leadership. I'm really not. It's everyone is different and everyone needs different ways of learning and different ways of progressing. But for me, I think when your roots are sort of very working class, when you feel a little bit inadequate, the key is work hard and throw yourself at it. Take what you've learned, which is great determination, putting yourself out there, and just go for it. But really, my message is just have a go.
So, Neil, thank you for your time today. Really, really appreciate it. Absolutely love your story. Your story is fascinating. From Newport, South Wales to, working class background to HR to procurement to ops to COO to CEO. I mean, that is a rare journey, and that too to achieve that by the time you're early 40s. That is inspiring for many and very inspiring for me. I mean, I've known you now for over 10 or 12 years from your Aviva days, and I've always been inspired by you, which is why I approached you to have this conversation. So thank you for sharing with everybody. And listeners out there, if there's any questions you have for myself or for Neil, we'd be delighted to hear from you. You could message Neil on LinkedIn or come through us and we can put the questions and pose them to him. And remember, we've got many more stories coming. So hit subscribe on YouTube and hope you enjoyed today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.